gas stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun. Yeah! Kurt Angle, yeah! Why, Triple H? You son of a I tell me why. And Tony Khan, this is also on you.
I am going to ruin wrestling.
Just get over it.
It's been a slow week, once again, in terms of professional wrestling news. I'm gonna be honest. It's been a really slow week. Last week and this week. But we actually have a couple of things to talk about. Of course, who can forget about Andrade? Andrade recently made his triumphant return. I wouldn't necessarily want to say triumphant, but he made his return to All Elite Wrestling this past Wednesday on AEW Dynamite, attacking Kenny Omega, the god of pro wrestling. We're also going to be talking about a lot of other things. Of course, AEW and WWE got hit really badly when it comes to the ratings. They got hit really badly, according to this new Nielsen system, which, I mean, you would think a new Nielsen system would actually help the ratings, not just for pro wrestling, but for any other programming. And it's actually helping a lot of other programming on television, but it's actually a detriment to professional wrestling. But yeah, man, we got a lot of things to talk about on this edition of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Of course, again, as I've stated at the top, it's been a pretty slow week in terms of wrestling news. Not a lot of major stories coming out. Of course, the big story is Andrade making his return to WWE, or to AEW, I should say. But aside from all of that, there's really nothing like grandiose to talk about, like no major announcement, no nothing. You know, coming off of WrestleMania being announced in Saudi Arabia, there really hasn't been anything big going on in wrestling. Wrestling kind of seems kind of cold right now. I'm not going to lie. Wrestling is something that's kind of cold right now. But other things going on in combat sports, of course, we had The Rock's new movie coming out, The Smashing Machine. Of course, the movie about Mark Kerr, the former MMA fighter. I didn't get a chance to watch the film, unfortunately, but hopefully this week I'll get a chance to watch the film. But from the trailers that I've seen, I mean, the film looks absolutely tremendous, absolutely amazing. A24, in my opinion, A24 makes fantastic movies. Like they make fantastic movies about anything, literally anything. Of course, they're no stranger to the wrestling industry. Of course, they made a movie a couple of years ago called The Iron Claw, which was a biopic about the famous Von Erich wrestling family, which going into that movie, I already knew what the story was going to be about, because if you guys don't know, the Von Erich family is arguably one of the most tragic families in the history of wrestling. It's really one of the most tragic stories in the history of wrestling. You know, death seems to follow that family around a lot. And it was a really sad movie. And I knew what I was going to get myself into going to watch Iron Claw. And it was a really fantastic film. I thought Zac Efron did a fantastic job. But Smashing Machine, on the other hand, I'm very curious. You know, I'm not the biggest MMA fan, but I really want to watch Smashing Machine because, number one, I mean, a lot of people are saying The Rock could win an Oscar for this movie, or he could be nominated for an Oscar for this movie, simply because of his performance in this film. And the thing about The Rock is, arguably, The Rock is easily the most famous professional wrestler transitioned into an actor. Everybody talks about the John Cenas and the Batistas. The Rock really paved the way for John Cena and Batista. A lot of people even consider, out of pure acting skill, Batista to be the best of the three. But each of them are not bad. But The Rock, if you watch any Rock movie, and this is no shade against The Rock, I'm a fan of The Rock, even though I've said some criticisms regarding The Rock's actions earlier this year regarding WrestleMania, but that's another story for another time. If you watch any Rock movie, and you know, I've grown up watching a lot of Rock movies. I mean, I'm gonna say this right here, right off the bat. My very first Rock movie was The Game Plan. That was my very first Rock film, and I still love that movie It's a really good movie. You guys haven't watched The Game Plan, definitely give that movie a watch. But if you watch any Rock movie, especially a Rock movie from like the last 10 to 12 years, maybe even farther than that, every character that The Rock plays is literally The Rock playing The Rock, if that makes any sense. Like, you don't really have a sense of The Rock acting as a different character. You just see Dwayne Johnson. And from the trailers that I've seen with Smashing Machine, I don't see Dwayne Johnson. I don't see The Rock. I see Mark Kerr. I thought A24 did a fantastic job. From the trailers that I've seen, I thought A24 did a fantastic job in terms of really, making, The Rock turn into Mark Kerr. But in terms of Smashing Machine, I'm definitely going to give that movie a watch. I'm very interested to watch Smashing Machine. A lot of people are saying really good things about it, and I'm definitely excited. So if you guys haven't watched Smashing Machine, it's already out in theaters. Give it a watch. It's the movie about former MMA fighter Mark Kerr. All right, let's get straight into the WrestleHavoc podcast. It is Sunday, October 5th, 2025. It is already the month of October. Can you believe this? We're 10 months into 2025. In 2 months, it's going to be December. 2025, I'm going to be honest, and I know I say this every episode of the podcast, but 2025, man, has flown by very quickly. Like it's just flown by. Like any other year that I've lived in my existence, 2025 has been easily the fastest year. It's insane. But a lot of crazy things happened in professional wrestling in 2025, and in 2 months it's already going to be December. But it's October, and of course, spooky season is upon us, man. Spooky season, my favorite holiday, Halloween. Yes, I love horror movies. I love all things scary. So definitely, we are on the countdown to Halloween, October 31st. But right now, it's October 5th. And this is the WrestleHavoc podcast, episode 23. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this edition of the show. Whether you guys are watching on the main WrestleHavoc channel or watching on WNN platforms, whether that is the Facebook page or the YouTube channel of WNN, I thank you guys so much for watching me right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast. And without any further ado, before we get into all this craziness, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the ring referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And without any further ado, let's get straight into all of the wrestling talk. We're going to start off with our top story, and our top story, of course, is Andrade. Andrade, as you guys know, was released a couple of weeks ago by WWE. Some might say he was just flat out fired, and honestly, with the reports that we are getting, that seems to be the case. He was fired from WWE. They've been reporting disciplinary issues. The reporting was disciplinary issues that Andrade was dealing with. A lot of people were talking about, of course, the wellness policy and how he violated the wellness policy. Well, we already have some details regarding Andrade and his return to AEW. And one of the crazy things about Andrade is, and I talked about this last week, Andrade left AEW, but he did not burn a bridge with AEW. I think we can all agree with that. Andrade did not burn a bridge with AEW, unlike a lot of other people, guys like CM Punk, guys like, you could say, Miro, and literally Miro, let's be honest with ourselves, Miro literally sat at home doing absolutely nothing, getting creative pitches after creative pitches, only to himself reject those pitches to AEW. Honestly, if I'm AEW, I would have fired Miro on the spot, because I am not paying a wrestler to do nothing and sit at home. That's just my opinion. But in terms of Andrade, Andrade was smart enough not to burn bridges with AEW. Of course, his last match in AEW before his return this past Wednesday was in December of 2023 at World's End, ironically, against Miro. See what I did there? But, of course, Andrade came back to the WWE in January of 2024, which, doesn't even seem that long ago, but it was literally, in a couple months, it's going to be like 2 years ago, which is crazy to think. But Andrade made his return to the WWE, and at the end of the day, his return was kind of lackluster. I think we can all agree with that. His most recent WWE run was very lackluster. Clearly, WWE just did not have any plans in terms of what they wanted to do with Andrade. Of course, they put the speed title on him, and I can vividly remember a lot of people hyping up the fact that they put the speed title on Andrade. People were literally hyping up the fact that WWE put the speed title on Andrade. People were hyping that up when that happened last year. Like, oh, you see, they're going to be doing stuff with Andrade. They're going to elevate Andrade. Look, he won the speed title. Yes, he won a championship on a show that nobody watches. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody watches WWE Speed. Nobody watches that crap. It's a waste of all of our time. But he won the speed title, of course. He had a series of great matches with Carmelo Hayes on SmackDown last year. And, of course, they were recently establishing Andrade as a tag team with Rey Fenix, which Andrade is the wrong tag team partner for Rey Fenix. It should be Penta. The fact that Rey Fenix and Penta are still separated speaks volumes. I mean, I think the moment of them reuniting is going to be great, but sometimes when it comes to these long-term storylines, I feel like WWE just drags these storylines way too long, in my opinion, to the point where once they reach that moment, I feel like the magic is already gone. But that's just me. In terms of Andrade, of course, it's no secret Andrade has had a series of disciplinary issues, not just with WWE, but in AEW as well. Who can forget the fight that he had with Sammy Guevara, which I believe, unfortunately, Andrade was the one that threw the first punch. And this was coming after an interview that Andrade did with an interviewer talking about how some of these wrestlers are very soft. Some of these wrestlers are very soft, and like, you know, if you got to really toughen up. And then Sammy Guevara got upset on social media, which led to their fight backstage. And keep in mind, this was during a time where the AEW locker room was in full shambles. Keep in mind, this was the fall of 2022. This was coming off the heels of Brawl Out with the whole CM Punk press conference chaos that took place. Of course, CM Punk goes on the media scrum right next to his boss that pays him millions of dollars, literally burying everybody in the company. An image that will forever live in infamy and easily the darkest day in the history of that promotion. I don't care what anybody says. Nothing can top the chaos that was Brawl Out. Nothing. Nothing can top the chaos that was Brawl Out. But this was coming during a time where the AEW locker room was just in complete disarray. Complete disarray compared to where they were a year prior. Because a year prior, the entire locker room felt united. But then a year later, the entire locker room just fell apart. Of course, the CM Punk stuff. Eddie Kingston getting in a fight with Sammy Guevara. And then, of course, the fight with Sammy Guevara and Andrade. So, like, there's a series of disciplinary issues when it comes to Andrade. Andrade seems like somebody, and unfortunately, and I like Andrade, I think he's very talented, somebody who, at the end of the day, doesn't seem happy in the position that he's in. I mean, a lot of people are comparing Andrade as the modern-day Jeff Jarrett. Why are people comparing Andrade to Jeff Jarrett? People are comparing Andrade to Jeff Jarrett because Andrade, if you guys don't know, is the first wrestler to leave WWE, go to AEW, leave AEW to go back to WWE, only for him to get released by WWE to go back to AEW. Very similar to Jeff Jarrett back in the 90s, with him being in the WWF, leaving, going to WCW, leaving again, going back to the WWF, only for him to leave the WWF under controversial circumstances, holding Vince McMahon money, holding money up from Vince McMahon, only to leave, go to WCW, which led to WCW getting bought out a couple of years later, which left him out of a job. But I mean, he was under one of those AOL Time Warner contracts, which gave him the idea of possibly starting a wrestling promotion, and thus TNA was born. But Andrade is very similar to Jeff Jarrett in the sense that he keeps flipping back and forth from promotions. Like, it's crazy. I've never seen a wrestler leave WWE, go to AEW, then leave AEW to go back to WWE, only for like maybe a year later to leave once again WWE to go back to AEW. It's crazy. But Andrade made his return this past Wednesday on AEW Dynamite, and he attacked Kenny Omega. Now, when we talked about his release on last week's show, of course, we talked about where he might end up, or a couple of weeks prior, I should say. We talked about where he might end up. And I talked about how he did not burn that bridge with AEW. He didn't. If anything, on the night of Andrade's last match with AEW in December of 2023 at the post-show media scrum, Tony Khan even spoke highly of Andrade and talked about how he was a professional and he would love to work with him again. He did not burn that bridge with AEW. And if you are a wrestler, the best thing that you can do is to not burn bridges. I urge people. This business can be very shady to you. You should not burn bridges in this industry. Yes, wrestling has more platforms than ever. Yes, AEW exists and it raised the pay grade for a lot of wrestlers. But it's important that you should not burn bridges. It's really important that you should not burn bridges. And Andrade was one of those people that just did not burn those bridges. You'd hear Dave Meltzer, when he was talking about Andrade's return, talking about how this wasn't a good idea, in his opinion, because there's a lot of wrestlers that got released by WWE that had no choice but to go to AEW and demanded a lot. Andrade seemed like one of those wrestlers, but again, Andrade is somebody who even though he has disciplinary issues, I mean, if he's on his way out, he leaves on a professional. He leaves on a professional matter. That's what he did, at least with AEW. In WWE, he just flat out got fired. He got fired. But PW Insider, Mike Johnson of PW Insider, actually gave us some details behind Andrade's return to All Elite Wrestling. And what's crazy about Andrade's return was that it happened out of the blue. Because remember, when he got released from WWE, I talked about this, everybody was speculating where he was going to go next. Some people were going to say he might return to AEW, which eventually he did. Maybe he can go to Japan. Maybe he can go back to CMLL. Because keep in mind, WWE purchased AAA, and ironically, WWE just didn't really do anything with Andrade in AAA, like on a singles level. Like they just didn't do anything with Andrade. If you really wanted to build AAA around a current WWE star, Andrade would have been the perfect candidate for that. But in terms of where he might end up before his AEW return, everybody was speculating maybe New Japan, AEW maybe, but it's a slight possibility. But he might get lost in the shuffle. And then I even made the suggestion maybe CMLL, but he ended up going back to AEW because AEW is where the money's at. AEW is where the money's at. It's arguably the only place. Think about this. AEW's the only place where they're able to pay you exactly the amount of money that WWE paid you, or probably more. Andrade made his return to AEW, and he made his decision. But Andrade made his return attacking Kenny Omega, and from what it looks like, he's now a part of the Don Callis family, and the Don Callis family is huge. Like they are overbloating that roster like crazy, or that faction like crazy. They got Kyle Fletcher. They had Wardlow until Wardlow got, of course, injured, and Wardlow unfortunately has the worst luck of all. They got Josh Alexander, Konosuke Takeshita, Kazuchika Okada, and now they got Andrade El Idolo. Oh yeah, by the way, they also got Hologram. Remember that? Yeah, they Hologram actually turned heel this past Wednesday on Dynamite. It's crazy. But Mike Johnson of PW Insider actually gave us some insight as to why Andrade is back with AEW so soon, so quickly. Mike Johnson stated this, and I quote, "Since Andrade El Idolo returned to AEW last night, that being this past Wednesday, we've been beside with questions as to how this could be since it hasn't been 90 days since he exited WWE. The easy short answer is that when WWE released Andrade, there was no 90-day non-compete clause. Multiple WWE sources confirmed to PW Insider that Andrade was cut due to numerous wellness violations over the past year. We are told that the decision was made to cut Andrade outright, making him free and cleared to perform elsewhere. Andrade had previously been announced for independent promotions in both Mexico and the U.S., so it was already obvious that he wasn't sort of any non-compete clause. WWE chose to cut him as opposed to paying him another 90 days to keeping him from performing elsewhere. Obviously, this pretty much makes what had been suspected for some time official, that the company no longer publicly announcing wellness policy suspensions for the main roster talents, something that had quietly disappeared over the last few years. So yeah, Andrade was not under a 90-day non-compete clause, which is normally the case with some of these wrestlers that enter in situations like Andrade. Interesting. Now, what's crazy about this whole situation is Andrade actually called out Dave Meltzer. Ironically, he called out Dave Meltzer, and he talks about how he talks too much without a lot of proof. In a tweet that Andrade El Idolo put out earlier today, he stated this, and I quote, "You talk too much without proof. And sir, I'll only tell you one thing. When my contract with AEW ended, I personally went man to man to thank Mr. Tony Khan for the opportunity to be in AEW. And that's all I'll tell you. If you wanted to talk more, I would show you that you're wrong about many things, but you keep killing the business. Yo lo deseo lo mejor. I'll decide the best. I believe that's what he said. But I'm reading this article from The Takedown on Sports Illustrated. Andrade is back for his second stint in AEW, but the decision to bring him back has left some scratching their heads. Famed professional wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer was among those to let his feelings be known in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. While he does believe that Andrade is talented in the ring, he expressed some surprise that AEW president Tony Khan would re-sign him after his 2023 departure from the company. He stated this, and I quote, "Andrade gave Tony Khan the belief that he was staying. Khan believed that they had an agreement for a renewal that wasn't yet signed. He pushed him until the end, even though those in wrestling who knew him said he was going to WWE. Then his contract expired, and he left. Andrade was released from his WWE contract last month, reportedly for disciplinary reasons, but also, according to BW Insider, he was not under a 90-day non-compete clause as well. John Alba has been told that he had at least one wellness policy violation that contributed to the decision to pull him from television after SummerSlam and ultimately let him go. It was not long before Andrade made his next move by agreeing to a contract with AEW. He re-debuted on the 6th anniversary edition of Dynamite, where he attacked Kenny Omega and joined up with the Don Callis family. And I already stated you guys the tweet on X that Andrade put out. Yeah, it's crazy. A lot of people point to Dave Meltzer as somebody who's very pro AEW, and then he was very vocal about AEW signing Andrade, and Andrade was literally the first one to call out Dave Meltzer, for lack of a better term, if you believe Meltzer or not, his BS. I mean, my thoughts on Dave Meltzer is this. Dave Meltzer has been around for a long time. I think we can all agree with that. Dave Meltzer has been around for a long time. He's been covering wrestling for decades. People need to understand that. He's not somebody that just randomly showed up ever since AEW started. No, he's been covering wrestling for decades. For decades. And what's crazy is that, like, when it comes to his star ratings, like, I don't care about Dave Meltzer's star ratings. Like, I believe if you are a professional wrestler, you should not cater your whole career based on just star ratings, because at the end of the day, the star ratings are just one man's opinion. It's just one man's opinion. Eric Bischoff has a beef with Dave Meltzer. He constantly tweets about him. I feel like in an unhealthy manner, but he constantly tweets about him. You got a bunch of grifters on the internet who don't have anything else to do with their lives but to just talk about Dave Meltzer, because at the end of the day, they can't get Dave Meltzer off of their heads. Say what you want about Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer, I don't want to say I don't think he's as reliable as he used to be. I think he's been getting a couple of things wrong, but also he's very opinionated in his opinions. And when it comes to his opinions, he's very straightforward with his opinions. I love listening to Dave Meltzer speak, in my opinion. I loved listening to Dave Meltzer. Hell, I'm a big fan of Brian Alvarez, especially Brian Alvarez. But when it comes to Dave Meltzer, man, he does have his haters. And his haters, say what you want, can have valid arguments as to why. And a lot of wrestlers do not like Dave Meltzer either, because they think Dave Meltzer spreads a lot of lies. And if you are a wrestler that thinks that way, you have the right to think that way. So if Andrade did that, then clearly, at the end of the day, Andrade knows what went down in that meeting with Tony Khan. Andrade knows how he left AEW, and he thinks he left AEW in a professional manner, and from what it looks like, he did. So honestly, in my opinion, I mean, there's really nothing to talk about at the end of the day. The only person that knows how he left AEW the last time is Andrade, and nobody else. You know, it's ironic. I always tend to question who tends to leak this information to Dave Meltzer. I feel like I genuinely believe, and it's not just in AEW, but ironically, situations like this lead to greater situations in the future. I mean, the whole CM Punk stuff is a pure example of that. Now, granted, Andrade is not on the level of CM Punk, and I feel like Andrade can, in a way, even though he kind of had disciplinary issues, at least he could control himself, unlike CM Punk, because CM Punk would just go off the rails. But I genuinely believe that I feel like in a way there's a mole in the AEW locker room. Somebody is leaking BS information to Dave Meltzer. Somebody. I don't know who it is, but it is what it is. Whatever. You're always going to have those people that love to gossip because they don't have anything else to do with their lives. But Andrade is back with AEW. He is now paired with the Don Callis family. And in my opinion, I think look, some people are mad about Andrade being a part of the Don Callis family. Some people think that AEW already botched Andrade. Look, from what it looks like, Andrade's first match back in AEW is not against some random jobber. It's against Kenny Omega. And from what it looks like, he's going to be facing Kenny Omega at WrestleDream in 2 weeks. So that's going to be great. But the real question is what is the long-term longevity when it comes to Andrade being in the Don Callis family? I think that's the number one question that we need to ask ourselves. Because AEW has a really good track record of making guys getting lost in the shuffle. I did not word that correctly, but they have a big track record of losing guys in the shuffle, if that makes any sense. Andrade, unfortunately, in his last run with AEW, was one of those guys that was lost in the shuffle. Miro, even though they booked him really strongly in the beginning as the Redeemer, I thought the Redeemer character was fantastic, he ended up getting lost in the shuffle. Malachi Black, he started off strongly, feuding with Cody Rhodes in 2021. And then, of course, they were building up to the House of Black and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, Malachi Black ended up getting lost in the shuffle. Could Andrade get lost in the shuffle? I definitely think so. Because Tony Khan, and I don't care if any AEW fan is watching this, Tony Khan has not changed his booking habits. He's not. He has not changed his booking philosophy. He just hasn't. He hasn't changed his booking philosophy. He still books the way that he does. I mean, for God's sakes, how many times this year have we been getting multi-man tag team matches on Dynamite where $100,000 is on the line? We've been getting that constantly recently. That screams to me that they're running out of ideas. That's just me, though. But I mean, when it comes to Andrade, we're going to have to wait and see what they do with them. There should be some sort of long-term plan because think about this. They are stacking that group like crazy. Again, Kyle Fletcher as the TNT champion. We got Konosuke Takeshita. We got Kazuchika Okada. Kazuchika Okada and Konosuke Takeshita are on the same group. They're in the same group together. Think about that. Konosuke Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada are on the same faction. That is insane. Josh Alexander as well. Josh Alexander is another one. Josh Alexander. What are they going to do with Josh Alexander? And they also got Andrade. I mean, they got a lot of top tier talent in that faction, and clearly AEW is building the Don Callis family as their next top heel faction. AEW loves their heel factions. They don't have a good track record of booking those heel factions well, the Death Riders. But even though I'll say though, and I've went on record and stated this, I'm actually starting to enjoy the Death Riders a little more. That's just me. I'm not calling it a guilty pleasure of mine, but again, the group is not bad. The Death Riders are not a bad group. It's just the way that they are being booked. That's it. That's a lot of people's problem with the Death Riders. But in terms of the Don Callis family, they're clearly building the Don Callis family up to be essentially the next top heel group in AEW. It's very similar to what WWE did. Like, they had the Bloodline, And then once they were starting to fade away, I mean, they kind of dragged the bloodline for a long time, and then they transitioned to the new bloodline with Solo Sikoa. But on the other side, on the Raw side, they had the Judgment Day, and the Judgment Day was literally running rampant all over that show. AEW is kind of doing something similar. You know, they have the Death Riders and they have the Don Callis family. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Andrade. Andrade is back in AEW. We'll see what AEW does when it comes to Andrade. Hopefully they book him well. But again, people need to understand Tony Khan hasn't changed his booking philosophy. All right. In our next topic, we are going to be talking about this new Nielsen system. This new Nielsen system is very telling about the state of professional wrestling on television. And everybody talks about the ratings. It's like, I'm going to be honest, the ratings discourse is annoying as hell. I think the fans talking about the ratings on the internet is so stupid and dated, because I feel like the fans that constantly talk about the ratings are fans that never experience that are literally fans that never experienced the Monday Night Wars in their lives. I didn't experience the Monday Night Wars, even though I keep getting I keep getting information about the Monday Night Wars just shoved down my throat. Like, I feel like WWE constantly shoves down your throat talking about the past and the Monday Night Wars, this and that. All right, I get it. But they were talking about this new Nielsen system. And if you guys don't know, AEW Dynamite scored its lowest rating ever. Scored its lowest rating in the show's history. AEW Dynamite this past Wednesday drew roughly little over 465,000 viewers on TBS, and that is not including the max numbers. And I know a lot of people are talking about the max numbers. It was reported earlier by Programming Insider and confirmed by WrestleHavoc. Dynamite was ranked number 6 for the night on cable in the 18 to 49 demographic. 465,000 viewers. This is a show that used to do 1 million viewers every week just a couple of years ago. 465,000 viewers. If you compare it to NXT, NXT dipped as well. NXT, of course, was the go-home show before their big showdown show, and ironically, NXT and AEW this coming Tuesday are going to be going head-to-head. Of course, NXT has their Invasion, a.k.a. Showdown show, which is a crossover with TNA. And also, AEW has Title Tuesday. And look, I'm going to be honest, AEW has promoted Title Tuesday very poorly. If there's one thing that AEW just does not do well, it's promotion. They do not know how to promote well, I'm sorry. But according to WrestleHavoc and Programming Insider, the September 30th edition of NXT averaged a total of 572,000 viewers, a drop of 135,000 viewers from the previous week, making it the least watched episode of NXT so far in 2025. The drop was even greater in the 18 to 49 demographic as the show posted a .10, another record low for NXT this year, and a drop from the .12 number posted 7 days earlier. Okay, now why are we talking about the ratings in this specific episode? Well, Nielsen, which is the distributor for all of the ratings, have a new system. They have a new system. I'm reading this from the takedown on Sports Illustrated. Nielsen, the global leader in audience data and analytics, recently made some major adjustments for how the company calculates television ratings, and they have a major effect on the professional wrestling industry across the board. Until quite recently, ratings figures were calculated by utilizing the quote-unquote panel-only method. Nielsen has now made the switch to something called Big Data plus Panel, and it has resulted in a significant drop in viewership numbers for WWE, AEW, and other promotions, but primarily WWE and AEW. And soon to be TNA, because they're in talks with multiple television networks for a possible television deal. WrestleHavoc conducted the full breakdown of the changes and what they mean, and if you're interested in learning more, we highly encourage you to check out their research on the matter. Sean Rossap of Fightful Select has asked around the industry and has learned that the new Nielsen rating system has been a topic of discussion in most locker rooms, and the results are being monitored heavily by every major promotion. In a quote, he stated this, and I quote, There was one source in AEW who said that Tony Khan is well aware of the changes, how they work, and is adept at what they mean specifically. Sean Ross Sapp said in his report Sunday, with AEW numbers, Max streaming is not reported for Collision and Dynamite, and the actual viewership emerging from those is kept very quiet. Why, though? Why are they kept very quiet? That's very telling, in my opinion. Is that a sign of the ratings being bad on Max or the ratings being good on Max? If the ratings were actually good on HBO Max, don't you think that they would release those numbers? And I'm an AEW fan. I'm gonna be honest. Like, don't you think if the ratings were good on HBO Max, don't you think they would release those numbers? But I don't know. I'm not an expert in that expertise. But that's just me. A source with Warner Brothers Discovery told Sean Ross Sapp that the sample size with the new system is still too small, and that Major League Baseball postseason games had a larger effect on AEW and NXT numbers this past week than anything else. We'll have to wait and see. Unlike previous Nielsen methodology changes, not seeing a strong pattern yet of what will achieve growth with this expanded set of data, have seen some sports events go up versus what previous panel data showed, and others go down versus what previous panel data showed. Baseball has particularly benefited in a way thus far, the WBD source said Fightful. So, ironically, this new Nielsen system is actually is having a positive effect on other programming. It's having a positive effect on events like live sports. It's having a positive effect, but ironically, it's actually affecting wrestling in a negative way. And I'll continue to talk about this report. A representative of the USA Network echoed those sentiments to Sean Ross Sapp, saying it's way too early to try to understand and rationalize the new data. Both USA and Warner Brothers Discovery sources said that there has been no discussion of cancellation, with a WBD source chuckling about that constantly being brought up, which is hilarious to think. Like, why would you ask that? Oh, cancellation. There's one common word that wrestling fans love talking about when it comes to the ratings. It's cancellation. They don't even know anything about the television industry, and they act like they're experts. We do not hear back from the CW representative or source regarding NXT, but the general consensus before the change was that the network was pleased with the results they get from NXT. There has been some discussion with WWE and AEW as to whether time adjustments have played a role, with both companies running inconsistent to their normal schedules in recent weeks. Some concern from WWE was also expressed that this new data could be used against TNA as they try to secure a new media rights deal, but TNA Wrestling President Carlos Silva told Sean Ross Sapp that such a thing hasn't been brought up during the negotiations. Look, and we will talk about TNA later on, but I believe the number that he was like floating around in the negotiations is roughly around 500,000 viewers, which is a stretch, but with the partnership with WWE and the right promotion, I think they're able to get 500,000 viewers on whichever network they're willing to go on. And from what it looks like, the rumored front runner is CW. But there's multiple different networks in talks with TNA. But in terms of this new Nielsen system, it definitely says a lot. I mean, NXT and AEW, and keep in mind, NXT's on a larger platform than AEW. NXT's on the CW, and the CW is not traditional cable. It's network television. It's Channel 11 here in Jersey and also in New York. But I mean, think about this: 572,000 viewers, a drop of 135,000 viewers from the previous week. Dynamite, which this year, and this was using the old system, was averaging around maybe 500 to 600,000 viewers, and in good weeks nowadays, they would go up to 700 or 800,000 on good weeks. On good weeks. This is on a show that used to do consistently 1 million viewers every week. I'm talking about 2021, 2022. But that was using the old system. Imagine if this new system was implemented back then. What do you think the numbers would be? What do you think the numbers would be? But 465,000 viewers, I don't care what any AEW fan would like to spin it around. That is a disastrous number. A disaster. This was on their 6th anniversary show. And what's crazy about AEW is that they always tend to have, it's like they have special shows every freaking week. Like they had September to Remember, and then like 2 weeks later they had the 6th anniversary. This week they got Title Tuesday, and I believe the next week they got the Homecoming show. Like they got so many special shows. It's crazy. Are they actually special? I don't know. But the 465,000 viewers is disastrous. Like those are Collision numbers. And Collision numbers are worse. The Collision numbers are far worse. Like I believe the last Collision drew roughly around 200 and something thousand viewers. Like the Collision ratings, I don't care what anybody says, they have been a disaster. Disaster. Now, granted, Collision tends to move around nights, but their main night is Saturday night. I've always said this, especially when Collision first launched and we started looking at the ratings. I remember when Collision first launched, the very first episode of Collision, which was promoted as the return of CM Punk, drew roughly around 800,000 viewers. They didn't even draw 1 million for their first episode, and this was on a Saturday night. We're talking about June of 2023. This was on a Saturday night, promoted heavily with the return of CM Punk. It drew only 800,000 viewers. Didn't even draw 1 million. It didn't even draw 1 million. And then week by week by week by week by week, the ratings would go further down. And they've been going even further down this year. Because, I mean, let's be honest, AEW just does not know how to book properly a secondary show. They have not learned their lesson from Rampage, unfortunately. They just haven't. Now, I actually take that back. I've been seeing a couple of good things with Collision, but I'm going to be honest. I don't have the time to watch Collision. I think a weekly wrestling show in 2025 on a Saturday night is grounds for failure, in my opinion. Saturday night is just not a good time slot because everybody's out. Nobody's watching television. And if they are, they're probably watching either a pay-per-view or something else going on that's even that's drawing more eyeballs and more attention to a lot of people. You know? A weekly wrestling show on a Saturday night in 2025 makes no sense. It's not 1985 anymore. It's just not. Especially if you're going head-to-head with either a WWE PLE or a UFC pay-per-view, you bet your ass nobody's going to watch your show. Everybody's going to watch those shows. That's just the reality of the situation. But this new Nielsen system definitely says a lot. For a system that's supposed to help a lot of programming with their ratings going up, and it's helped a lot of shows have higher ratings, like, for example, live sports, it's affecting wrestling in a negative way. It's definitely affecting wrestling in a negative way. And why are a lot of people talking about this? People are talking about this because at the end of the day, wrestling is no longer just a live event business. It's still a live event business, but it's more than that nowadays. It's more corporate, especially on the WWE side. A lot of these promotions, their main source of income is their media rights. Their media rights deals. That's their main source of income. Look at WWE. They have so many different media rights deals for Raw, NXT, SmackDown. Their PLEs. I mean, they just signed a multi-billion-dollar deal with ESPN, which started off on a disastrous note, but it is what it is. AEW, for a company that has existed for a little over 6 years, is on WBD. It's on HBO Max. It's on the TBS network. It's on TNT. That they recently signed a renewal last year. That's their main source of income. Without that, AEW, what is AEW? Without that, what is it? Without that, AEW is lifeless. Promotions, whether that is wrestling, MMA, or even boxing. Yes, boxing. Combat sports in general, these businesses thrive on their media rights. They thrive on their television. So that's why this is such a big story. The ratings this week were a disaster, and I do not see that changing anytime soon. AEW and NXT are going to be going head-to-head this Tuesday, and if you look at the card, if you look at the card, like, I mean, AEW, Title 2, we got a six-man tag team street fight. We got the Hurt Syndicate versus The Demand. The Demand, Ricochet and Bishop Khan and Tony Leona. We got a double Jeopardy eliminator match with Bro Dito, that being Brandito and Brody King, taking on Kazuchika Okada and Konosuke Takeshita. We got the TNT title on the line as Kyle Fletcher will defend his title against Kyle O'Reilly. TBS title on the line as Mercedes Moné versus a mystery opponent. Jon Moxley will take on Tomohiro Ishii. Orange Cassidy versus Pac. Jurassic Express in action. And a face-to-face confrontation between Hangman Page and Samoa Joe. Not a bad card, but for a show that's going head-to-head against NXT, especially a big episode of NXT, I mean, it's not really the strongest card in my opinion. Meanwhile, if you look at the NXT show, I mean, we got the TNA versus NXT Survivor Series men's match. We got Ricky Starks or Ricky Saints, Trick Williams, Miles Bourne, and Javon Evans taking on Team TNA, Mike Santana, Frankie Kazarian, Moose, and Leon Slater. We got the women's NXT versus TNA Survivor Series match with Jordan Grice as the special referee, with Team NXT consisting of JC James, Sol Ruka, Jada Parker, and Lola Vice, taking on the female side of Team TNA, Kalani Jordan, who ironically is the TNA Knockouts champion, and she is an NXT wrestler, which is, I mean, she's a part of Team TNA. Meanwhile, you got Trick Williams, who is the who is the TNA World Heavyweight Champion on Team NXT. Meanwhile, you got Kalani Jordan, who is the the TNA Knockouts champion, representing Team TNA, even though she's an NXT wrestler. Brian Alvarez had a field day with this, by the way. Brian Alvarez had a field day with this. He was like, this is like the 2001 Invasion all over again. I almost dropped my pen. He was like, this is like literally the 2001 Invasion all over again. Now, I'm not going to lie. I don't watch NXT on a consistent basis because I just don't have the time. I've seen clips. I've seen some of the clips of them building this up. From the clips that I've seen, I'm going to be honest, this feels so forced. The whole idea of the invasion, to me, with TNA and NXT, and especially how they built it up this past Tuesday on NXT, from what I've seen, to me feels really forced. Like really, really, really forced to the point where it just doesn't feel realistic at all. Felt really forced. We had the NXT tag team titles versus the TNA tag team titles in a title for title match, I believe. And we got Dark State versus the Hardys. So, I mean, I would assume that the Hardys are going to walk out as not only the TNA tag team champions, but also the NXT tag team champions. Think about that. The Hardys as the NXT tag team champions. And yes, I understand that they're a part of TNA, but they're literally the most WWE tag team you could think about. The most WWE tag team you could find, the Hardy Boys. The NXT North American title is on the line as Ethan Page will take on Mustafa Ali. And we got a Joe Hendry segment. I'm going to be honest, man. And look, again, I know I don't normally talk about the ratings, but if you really compare both the AEW card and the TNA NXT card, the TNA NXT card looks way more stacked. I'm actually tempted to watch that because normally I watch, like if these shows go head to head, I usually watch the AEW show. 100%, I'm definitely going to be watching the NXT TNA show. I'm very, very, very interested to see what they're going to be doing with this. But in terms of the ratings, look, if you want me to give you a prediction, if you really want me to give you a prediction, honestly, NXT is going to win this. It's not even a debate. NXT is 100% going to win this. It's not even a debate at this point. It's not even a debate. All right. Continuing on with the WrestleHavoc podcast. It is October 5th, 2025. I thank you guys so much for joining me on this edition of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Of course, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc channel right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of Squared Circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the friggin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And also, of course, if you guys are watching on WNN platforms, I thank you guys so much for watching me on those platforms as well. All right, continuing on with the WrestleHavoc podcast. We're going to be talking about TNA. TNA, of course, is in active negotiation talks with a potential media rights partner. We do not know what that network is, and we do not know when the announcement will be. But I think the whole idea of TNA getting a television deal is getting more and more real by the day. And from what it looks like, it's more of a matter of if. It's more of a matter of when, not if, actually. It's more of a matter of when, not if. I was about to say it's a matter of if, not when, but It makes no sense. It's more of a matter of when, not if. But Carlos Silva was in an interview with TV Insider, and he stated that TNA is in active negotiations with an interested television/streaming partner. Of course, he stated this, and I quote, "We're now in active negotiations with a partner, and we're going to work through that. I can't really put a timeline on how long that will take. The good news is that the process has started. We're no longer just talking to a bunch of people to sort of gauge interest, but now we have an interested partner and working through potentially a deal for 2026. It's going to happen as soon as it can happen. We're working on it as recently as yesterday, exchanging papers and trying to figure it out. We're excited about it, and we're going to keep pushing forward to get this over the finish line, and this is done when it's over the finish line." Okay, so when it comes to this whole TNA deal, I'm going to be honest. I'm definitely interested. I've went on record and stated this. I think the wrestling business needs a number 3, and TNA is that number 3. They're not number 2, unlike what a lot of people say. They are the number 3, and they are a decent number 3, a distant number 3, but they are the number 3. And if they get this television deal, we're going to be on the verge of the era of the modern day big 3. We got WWE, we got AEW, and we got TNA. Which honestly, at the end of the day, is a good thing for the industry. It's a good thing for the industry because more wrestlers have more opportunities, and it gives wrestlers another platform to perform their craft. And that's really the thing that people need to understand. At the end of the day, this is fantastic for TNA. Fantastic stuff for TNA. But that doesn't mean TNA is going to be the number 2 wrestling promotion. They're not going to beat AEW in terms of being the number 2 because AEW just has a much larger budget and they're actually willing to spend the money, unlike TNA. Now, TNA does have the WWE partnership, and look, I don't care what anybody says. And look, I've said my fair share of the partnership with WWE and TNA. I've been very vocal about it. I genuinely believe that TNA is being used as a pawn, and I still believe that to this day. They are being used as a pawn. I don't think WWE actually cares about TNA. That's just me. But at the same time, I'm not going to deny that this WWE partnership has benefited TNA greatly, because it has. I'm being honest. It has benefited them tremendously. And honestly, with this new TV deal being in the works, the fact that TNA is actually partnered with WWE, actually, it gives TNA leverage. And that's the most important thing. It gives TNA leverage because they're partnered with the industry leader. They're partnered with WWE. But that doesn't mean they're going to be number 2. They're far past the days of them being number 2. They were number 2 in the 2000s and the early to mid 2010s. But they're not number 2. But I also do believe that eventually WWE will buy them out in a couple of years. I think that's for sure. Now, the rumored networks, and we talked about this before, but the rumored networks for TNA are either the CW, A&E, and FS1, or maybe even Tubi. Now, I will say this. In my opinion, I think CW is the most logical choice for TNA. I don't think WWE has an exclusive contract with the CW, but since TNA is WWE's partner, I feel like WWE would love to advocate for TNA to go on the CW. Now, some people say that WWE doesn't have any say in terms of the negotiations with this possible television network in TNA. Some people say, I don't know. Some people say they do. Some people say they don't. I genuinely believe they have some sort of say, but we're going to have to wait and see. But again, TNA is being used as a pawn. There was even some stories stating that WWE would love for TNA to go head-to-head against AEW Dynamite, which, in my opinion, is a death sentence. Simply because of the fact that you're limiting the amount of potential viewers for the new TNA show on the new network. In my opinion, you're limiting the amount of viewers that you're able to attract. You just are. You just are. But in terms of this new television deal, we're gonna have to wait and see where they end up. I assume a deal is probably going to be done. My prediction, maybe in the next month, because originally, from what it looked like, they were aiming for this year to be like their big debut, but from what it looks like, once they sign this new deal, they're going to go on this new network next year, which makes more sense. But yeah, TNA is very close to signing their television deal. In that same interview, Carlos Silva talked about a possible sale of the company. TNA president Carlos Silva feels if TNA continues to build itself as a product, there could be people down the line inquiring about giving investment dollars or even buying the company. He stated this, and I quote, on TV Insider, "We're going to keep building the product and keep building the audience and keep building the digital platforms and the social. We're going to keep building our partnerships that we have with WWE and NXT, which is great. There's going to be that's going to bring in sponsorships. We are going to keep building up that engine. If we all do that, yes, there could definitely be people that come and knock on our door and say, hey, can we give you investment dollars? Or they may say, can we buy you? But if we don't build the product or make it great, none of that other stuff happens. That's a great problem we have." So he's essentially saying like, hey, yeah, this could open the opportunity for somebody to come in and maybe buy us out. Of course, talks of a TNA sale have been kind of in the norm throughout the past month. Of course, this new WWE partnership, it was reported a couple of months ago that apparently WWE has the right to first refusal, which means if any other third party is wanting to buy TNA, WWE has the right to refuse that offer and match that offer. So again, they have the right to first refusal. So if they have the right to first refusal, that clearly means that eventually they want to buy TNA out, which, I mean, dude, it's WWE for you. Have you noticed as to why they're partnering with a lot of these other different promotions? They're partnering with a lot of these different promotions because, of course, they had that antitrust lawsuit, which they recently settled with MLW. That's why. It's for them to stay face at the end of the day. It's for them to stay face. But no, again, nobody's denying that this partnership has benefited TNA greatly. It has benefited TNA a lot. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens. It's very interesting and honestly very, very telling. But yeah, in terms of that, we got other shows happening. We got Crown Jewel, of course, and we got Wrestle Dream. We got Crown Jewel, and the card is looking pretty good for Crown Jewel. Of course, Crown Jewel is going to be taking place on Saturday, October 11th. It's going to be taking place at 8 a.m. Eastern time for us here in the East Coast in the U.S., which is crazy. Imagine waking up around 7:30 just to get ready for an 8 a.m. Eastern time PLE. That is insane. I usually tend to sleep in. But if you look at this card, I mean, the card for Crown Jewel is not looking bad at all. We got Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky, or not Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky. Rhea Ripley and Io Sky taking on the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane. Of course, they recently turned heel, that being Asuka. We got John Cena versus AJ Styles in the singles match, which I'm 100% excited about. I talked about this on last week's show about John Cena and AJ Styles. I had the privilege of watching their second match at SummerSlam live at the Barclays Center. It was a great experience. Stephanie Vaquer, who is the Raw Women's Champion or the Women's World Champion, taking on the WWE Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton in a singles title or in a singles match for the WWE Crown Jewel Championship. A championship, let's be honest with ourselves, that means absolutely nothing. And then we also got Cody Rhodes, who's the undisputed champion, taking on Seth Rollins, who is the World Heavyweight Champion in a singles match for the Crown Jewel Championship on the men's side. Honestly, if you really think about it, Seth Rollins should honestly get the win. I mean, Seth Rollins, if we really want to establish Seth Rollins as like someone who's really dominant, I mean, the best way to do that is to really have Seth Rollins beat Cody Rhodes. But I'm not a fan of these matches because if you're pinning both of your world champions against each other in a match for a title that means absolutely nothing, what is honestly the point? Think about that. Like, really, what is the point? You're risking one of your champions to lose against the other champion. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense in my opinion. It really doesn't. But we're going to have to wait and see what they do. I mean, obviously, on the women's side, Stephanie Vaquer is clearly going to get the win over Tiffany Stratton. Because Stephanie Vaquer, in my opinion, is by far the best female wrestler on the WWE women's roster. She really is. And Seth Rollins, I mean, if there's anything that WWE has been doing this year, is they have been establishing Seth Rollins as a dominant heel figure. That's why they paired him with Paul Heyman. That's why they formed The Vision. That's why they got Braun Breaker. That's why they got Bronson Reed in the group. And it would make no sense for Seth Rollins to lose clean to Cody Rhodes. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I definitely do see Seth Rollins getting the win. We also got WrestleDream. A week later, we have AEW WrestleDream taking place. And WrestleDream, honestly, is looking to be a pretty stacked card. I'm not going to lie. I'm very interested in what's going to be happening at WrestleDream. Some of the matches that we're going to be getting, I mean, we got Hangman Page versus Samoa Joe. A match that, like if you really think about it, Samoa Joe is a fantastic opponent for Hangman Page. Like, Samoa Joe can literally sell you on anything. But also at the same time, if you look at the challenges for Hangman Page, he doesn't really have a lot of decent challengers right now. He doesn't really have a lot of decent challengers. I mean, MJF, he's not there yet. I think he eventually will be taking the title from Hangman Page, but he's not there yet. And he's taking some time off. But I mean, Samoa Joe, I think he is the perfect opponent for Hangman Page for a show like WrestleDream, in my opinion. The best opponent. He will literally make Hangman Page look like $1 million. Now, some people did not like the angle that they did this past Wednesday on Dynamite. Some people did. That angle that they did on Dynamite was straight out of Ring of Honor. Like, straight out of classic Ring of Honor with Samoa Joe and I believe Takeshi Morishima. I believe that that was the angle that they got that idea from for this whole angle. But Hangman Page and Samoa Joe are going to be having a face-to-face this Tuesday on Dynamite. In terms of other matches for AEW WrestleDream, we have Toni Storm versus Kris Statlander in a one-on-one match for the AEW Women's World Championship. Of course, Kris Statlander, she got a shocking win at All Out, and she became the AEW Women's Champion. Some people say a little bit too late, but hey, at least she won the title. But also, we got Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin in an I Quit match, which I definitely assume that this is going to be their blow-off. I mean, dude, all of the matches that both Darby Allin and Jon Moxley have been in this year, have been insane. Like, of course, there was the Cage of Death. I like calling it the Cage of Death. I mean, it was the lights out steel cage match, but they took inspiration from Cage of Death from CZW. The Cage of Death match at Forbidden Door was insane. And the match that they had at All Out, I mean, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started with the match they had at All Out. But their I Quit match, I mean, I don't know if you can top a lot of the stuff that they can do that they did at All Out, but we're gonna have to wait and see, man. It was absolutely insane. But in terms of other matches that might happen, of course, Andrade attacked Kenny Omega, and if AEW was smart, Andrade's first match back in AEW would not be on a random Dynamite; it'd be against Kenny Omega. So I definitely do see AEW booking Andrade versus Kenny Omega at WrestleDream. And if you look by that, I mean, right now they have 3 matches officially announced. But adding that Andrade and Kenny Omega match, I mean, this card is absolutely stacked. I mean, you got Darby versus Mox, Statlander versus Storm, Page versus Joe, and possibly Andrade versus Omega. I mean, dude, if there's one thing that AEW is good at, is their pay-per-views. They're phenomenal when it comes to pay-per-view. They are masters at pay-per-views. They just are. They're masters at pay-per-views. But we're gonna have to wait and see what happens next. I won't be surprised if Tony Khan would book like 10 other matches that are useless for this card. But that is the card so far for AEW WrestleDream. And yeah, that concludes the WrestleHavoc podcast from October 5th, 2025. We definitely talked about a lot of things regarding pro wrestling, but at the same time, it's been a really, really, really slow week, once again, in terms of wrestling news. Yeah, we had Andrade make his return, but if you really think about it, there were just not a lot of big things happening in the realm of professional wrestling. Again, wrestling for me right now is kind of in a lull, but that's normal. I mean, wrestling tends to be in the lull around this period of time. But yeah, man, we got Crown Jewel happening next weekend. Of course, we got Wrestle Dream happening the week after. So, yeah, we got a lot of shows to look forward to. I mean, we got AEW and NXT going head-to-head this Tuesday. I'm definitely looking forward, even though I don't watch NXT, I'm definitely looking forward to that NXT and TNA show. The Title Tuesday show, honestly, I could care less. But, of course, I'm definitely going to be watching it. I'm definitely excited for that Hangman Page and Samoa Joe face-off. So, yeah. But that was the WrestleHavoc podcast. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below. Push that bell for notifications. I mean, look out for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc channel, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the friggin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. As always, it is yours truly, Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out off of the WrestleHavoc podcast. I'll see you guys all next week. Peace.